Hi there, it's me again. Section 10.4b, ready to go. We still got radical equations, only this time we need to talk about extraneous solutions. This is just going to be an extra added step onto the end of 10.4a, solving radical equations. So basically, extraneous solutions are solutions that don't work when you check them. So in other words, yes, you have to check your answers. You probably will have more foiling. You probably will have more factoring or quadratic formula. And yes, you do need to check answers. So let's look at, let's do a couple problems. Let's do problem 1 and maybe 4, somewhere in there. Let's start with 1. Let's not even worry about the others yet. So if I'm going to solve this equation, the square root of x plus 2 equals x minus 4, the first thing I'm going to think of is the last section where I said the first thing you have to do is isolate the radical. Is the square root sign all by itself on the left-hand side of the equation? It is, right? So we're ready to just go ahead and get rid of that by squaring both sides. Just like we did before, I'm going to put parentheses around that x minus 4 and do a side problem. I'm going to write out x minus 4 2 times, and I'm going to FOIL this guy. So x squared minus 4x minus 4x and a positive 16. Combine my like terms and I should have, whoops, x squared minus 8x plus 16. Now I know I went through that fast, but I feel like you've got this. You've done this before. If you're struggling with that part, please let me know. But that should be something that you know from chapter 9. So we did that already. On the left-hand side, I've got an x plus 2 underneath the radical and squared, and we all know that squaring and square rooting undo each other. So I've got an x plus 2 there. So I've got a quadratic because I've got an x squared term. So my first thinking is, let's get everything on one side equal to 0. There's a problem with this problem. I like to leave the x squared where it is so it's positive. I don't like a negative value. So if that's the case, I'm going to subtract x from both sides, and I line it up nice and neat. And then I'm going to minus that 2 from both sides, because when I do that, those cancel out, and I've got 0 equals. Over here, I've got x squared. I've got a negative 8x minus 1x, so that should be a negative 9x. 16 minus 2 gives me a 14. What do you want to do here? Do you want to do quadratic formula, or do you want to factor? You could use the square method if you like that. You could use quadratic formula. I feel like I should probably play the song right now, but I'm going to use quadratic formula on this one. If we have another one, I'll factor that. So my a, b, and c, a is 1, b is negative 9, and c is 14. So x equals negative b. What happens again to that negative b when it's already negative? Becomes positive 9 plus and minus the square root. Negative 9 squared minus 4 times 1 times 14, all over 2 times 1. Everybody remembers the quadratic formula, right? If not, we need to go back and review. So I'm going to go underneath the parentheses and do all the math that's there. Make sure that I square root before I start dealing with anything else. So I've got a 9 squared minus 4 times 1 times 14. I ended up with a 25 for this whole thing right here. Well, is 25 a perfect square? Nice, right? I can write it out like this if you want. So square root of 25 is 5. So 9 plus 5, divide that by 2. 9 minus 5, divide that by 2. So 9 plus 5 is 14, divided by 2. X should be equal to 7. 9 minus 5 is 4. Divide that by 2. X should be equal to 2. So after all that, we are not done. Because what did I say that extraneous solutions were? Solutions that don't work when you check them. Yes, you have to check them. So I'm going to go back to my very original equation before I did anything. Square root of x plus 2 equals x minus 4, and I'm going to check them. So let's check a 7. So I'm going to put a 7 in wherever I see an x. So the square root of 7 plus 2 equals 7 minus 4. Well, what is 7 plus 2 underneath that radical? Would you agree that the square root of 9 equals 3? I like it. So 7 is going to be a good answer. I'm going to put a box around that. Let's check 2. And I usually write down what I'm checking just so that I can go back and figure out what the heck I was doing. So I'm going to put a 2 in wherever I see an x. So 2 plus 2 underneath the square root equals 2 minus 4. Well, square root of 4 equals negative 2. Do you agree? I don't. That looks like a junk answer, right? We don't like that one. That's not true. So 2 is not a true statement because it didn't check when you did the work. So in other words, 2 is an extraneous solution. 7 is the only answer that we'd put on the answer line. So that's what extraneous solutions do. You do the whole math problem. You go back and you do a check step at the end and make sure that they work. So let's do one more. Let's skip this. Actually, let's write this word problem out. You can always do this. The square root of a number and 7 is 8. So I know is always means equals, right? So I know it's equals 8. The square root, this and is telling me that I'm going to add. So that's what my equation would look like for problem number 3. Let's do problem number 4. So I've got a square root of x plus 3 equals a negative 5. My radical is already isolated, so that means I'm ready to just square both sides. Remember to be careful when you square that negative 5. I should end up with an x plus 3 because square rooting and squaring undo each other. Is everybody okay with the 25 for that other side? One-step equation, we can do this in about a second. X equals 22. I like it. Now I'm just going to do a quick check, make sure that it works. So when I check 22, I'm going back to my original equation. So I'm going to do the square root of 22 plus 3 equals negative 5. So I went back here. I only had one x. So 22 plus 3 is 25. What do you think of this? The square root of 25 equals negative 5. Do you agree with this? Right? Square root of 25 is a plain 5, right? This is junk. This is junk. I have to write something down on the answer line, and since 22 didn't check, I'm going to say there are no solutions left. In the problem that we did before this, we had 2 possible and 1 didn't work. Well, this time we had 1 possible and it didn't work, so there isn't a solution. There's nothing that will make that statement true. So we can't have an answer to it. Number 5, we'll probably do in class, but notice your radical is not isolated, so you got a couple things to do before you can square both sides. All right, lesson summary. There we go. I'm going to give you the equation, the square root of 2x plus 8 equals x. I'm going to give you the solutions. I did the work for you. I just want you to do the check. So circle which one or write down which one is a good solution and which one is junk or extraneous. Check those 2 solutions to make sure that they work back in my original equation. In your practice problem, do that solving and make sure you check it. Ready, set, go. Have a great day. We'll see you guys next time.